Logan Broadbent, my friend.
Rich
What's up,
Ryan.
dude?
Nice enunciation of that last name. Wow.
Smash it today.
You
So this
nailed it.
Monday is going well so far. Dude, thanks for joining me. Another stellar performance out of you this weekend. But it's not a surprise. The race was in Ohio. So they basically let you start like the wave start. Is it like
Yeah.
kind of like there's a pro in golf, like there's a pro tee, like a men's tee? Do you have like a starting line that is substantially into the course when it's in Ohio, just because like you might as well.
They start me 1 mile ahead of everybody else. They give me a slight home field advantage, which I really appreciate.
They need to start everybody else a mile ahead because of when they're coming to your home turf, like you're coming for the jugular. So Indian Mud Run. Also, I'm surprised they're still allowed to have that name.
So I've been thinking about this a lot. I thought about it a lot leading up to it, right? Because, I think the Cleveland Indians are about to change their name, right? We had the Washington football team change their name, which I think is appropriate, right? I think it's the right call. I think QB may have some friendships or associations with some folks down there who are part of, who have that heritage. Maybe he has permission, but yeah, maybe something to consider kind of going forward, whether or not that's the name they want to keep.
I just figured it's like the third rail. Just might as well like, hey, I'm just gonna go away from that. But I don't know. But that's something I thought too. But I guess that makes sense. The Cleveland Indians, it's right there. So, but the Indian Mud Run, you took it down. It was in the backyard, and this race kind of is the closest thing that we're going to get stateside to OCR World Championships or OCR North.
Sure.
You would think?
Or any technical like obstacle heavy European race, right? That is what this was.
And for this, and it's mostly a regional race typically, right? The Midwest, sometimes a lot of people Mid-Atlantic will go over there, and it has a good reputation for having these incredible obstacles and being really obstacle dense. But this one in particular caught the attention of one of the West Coast athletes at the top of the game named VJ Jones. So he made his way out to the Indian Mud Run this year, and you were there waiting for him. So leading into the race, have you done this race before?
Actually, no. I mean, it's 2 hours away from me. I just always had something else. I've always wanted to do it because all of my friends, everybody's done it, has raved about this race, about the obstacles, how many there are, the challenge of the race. But this is my first year that I didn't have a boomerang tournament or a YouTube video or something else going on. So I was stoked to be able to go down and compete.
You just stack things on top of each other now. You can just fit it all. You don't have to choose anymore. You figured out how to do all the things. So you're fine.
There's multiples of me. So I just end up going everywhere.
Just knock them out. And so going into the race, this was definitely the most competitive year for it. Just if you would have come by yourself, like that would have made it the most competitive. And then VJ coming in and who third was Jason West, right? Who's also a pretty solid athlete. So,
yeah.
And looking at the course map, because I had, coach and athlete who actually won the like 40 to 44 age group or whatever it was, and was trying to look at the map with her, and I was like, I don't know. I don't even know what this is. And it's like so obstacle dense, and it's hard to really see what else is going on. So like usually when we do these recaps, kind of go through and what the obstacles like, how you got through them. I don't think that that's even a possibility.
We don't have time for that. We don't have 3 hours.
How would you describe the race though, just in general? Like how do they describe the race? What is it?
Oh my gosh. All right. So, topography, it's hilly. All right. It's very hilly, but it's a lot of ups and downs, not massive mountainous climbs, right? But very aggressive, very steep climbs. Part of it in the center. So this used to be a golf course. A large part of this used to be a golf course surrounded by forests. So the areas that used to be golf course have relatively even good footing and running through tall grass or short grass, where you can put a lot of the really tough obstacles and the rigs and everything. But then anytime you're in the woods, which is a large percentage of this race, it is super technical. They aren't trails designed as like hiking trails. They're just areas where you can move through the woods. And it's a lot of scrambling, some climbing. You're going through riverbeds, up ravines, steep down ravines, steep back up. There's a lot of areas where you have to like pull a rope to get yourself up to the top of these climbs. And the running where you actually have to run through the woods is super technical. And I tend to have an advantage in that realm.
So there really isn't, on top of it being incredibly obstacle dense, it's not very runner friendly, you would say.
Not a road runner. It's not road runner friendly. No,
right.
It's not friendly for anybody who is used to hitting just track, right? Or bridle trail or path or something, right? This is for somebody who is used to running on single track mountain bike trails or something along those lines.
And I would say I wouldn't consider you to be necessarily one-dimensional in terms of running that you are. Like you can get in you're a good rhythm runner. If it was a road, like you could do well on, and you could do well in trail. I would consider VJ kind of the same. Like he does have a very fluid, smooth, kind of looking like a road runner stride, but he's good on trails, right? So
he run trails.
He definitely can.
Proved it over and over. Yeah.
But on these, because even looking at some of the obstacles, like, there was like rock walls, right? And like actual scrambles and everything, right? So
for sure.
Take us through the race a little bit. So how did it kind of start, and what was your plan going into it? What was kind of your approach?
Yeah. So my approach was really to, I knew it was going to be a fast start because it's a nice downhill start, which gets everybody up to speed really, really well, despite everyone already wanting to start too hard. So I wanted to hang in the front. I kind of wanted to push the pace a little bit and keep the pressure up toward the front so that, we could kind of shake out who's going to contend, right, in the longer race. Because by the time you get into the woods, it becomes harder to pass people, right? You have to wait for a tough obstacle. You got to wait for it to open up. You got to work hard to get up a climb faster than somebody else or do something, more strategic. And so I wanted to go into the woods somewhere toward the lead. I figured VJ and I would be together. I at least wanted to be within contention with him. And I actually ended up entering the woods in the lead. And at that point, I actually within somewhere within the first mile, I took a hard spill. VJ was right behind me, but I was taking some of these descents and some of the rocks really aggressively, and I went down hard. I kind of paid for it, and luckily he didn't step on me, but he did make a little pass there, and then he and I were kind of running together and kind of pretty much supporting each other through that point. We continued to run together pretty hard. There was a one obstacle where you have basically an A-frame with the rings, and you have to kind of, I forget what they call it.
Like Valkyrie?
Yeah,
it goes up and comes down.
Sort of, but it's the rings that you hold, and you have to hook them onto the horizontal bars. So it's monkey.
You bring it with you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then you drop them back in the bucket. So he and I were kind of together there. I still got to that obstacle first, but where I made a move is when we hit Weaver, which is, if anybody is familiar with this, it's a bunch of horizontal, it's an A-frame with horizontal 4x4s essentially. And you have to weave between the poles over
and under, right?
Yeah, over, under, which, I'm a smaller guy. I tend to be pretty good with body control. I got through that really quickly. And that's where I started to put a little gap, and then we dipped back into the woods. And as soon as we went back in the woods, that's where I decided to make a move and hopefully extend the lead so that by the next time he saw me, I would have a stronger gap and playing a little bit of a mental game there.
So with Weaver, let's talk about that one a little bit, because I may have done that at one of the OCR World Championships events. I don't remember. Yeah. I don't think I have done that, but when I watch it, it seems like it'd be really hard to go through quickly. So when you're going through it and you mentioned your body control, are you upping the effort to get through it faster, or is there a specific technique that you have and use that helps you kind of move through it? Or like, what are the mental cues you're telling yourself to get through that?
Yeah, I don't think that this is one where you can force it, right? Where you can just like, I'm going to go harder and that's going to allow me to do this faster. When you do that, you just kind of get caught up on yourself. It's got to be a nice, smooth rhythm, right, to get through this one. And what I tend to do is, it's really going under that is the hard part, right? You have to go under one, reach over and grab the other, and then I'm using my legs. I'm alternating my legs over top of each 4x4. So it's kind of a funky design. I should probably post a video of it or something to show the right technique.
That'd be cool.
But you can see, you can see there's a few different ways that people have done it, but that one I think saves the most energy because I'm using all 4 of my limbs to support my weight, right? And I'm not just trying to, kind of muscle through it with just my arms.
Is that what people end up doing? They might just use like grab with the arm first and then kind of hoist, like kind of press themselves up and over.
Yes. And then they have to get to the next one, and then they lose their footing, and then they're just using their arms, and they have to swing their legs back up. What you want to do is try to keep in contact, have at least 3 points of contact, similar to rock climbing, having 3 points of contact at all times. And I'm going through the entire thing horizontally. So some people will try to go vertically and try to weave through the poles. But what you should really be doing is, stay horizontal, perpendicular, or with the poles and go through it that way. And that's the right technique.
Interesting. So coming out, and I could feel like that would be really taxing if you aren't used to it. And like with the first time you've ever seen it, it'd probably really frustrating too. So you came out of that and then put a move on, and then that was kind of it, huh?
That was kind of it. Yeah. I put a gap going into the woods, and luckily, I had done a very long warm up. So before any race, I tend to warm up at least, so this race was 6.6 miles. I think my watch had it closer to 7, but 85 obstacles, right? So I wanted everything to be warmed up. I wanted to rev the engine, and I think that really helped, right? And I ran to the backside. I looked at the, how long the carries were and everything, and kind of planned out the race. And yeah, once I dipped into the woods and really made my move, I felt good, but I kept getting nervous because as the lead runner, I have to pay very close attention to where the course goes, right? It wasn't super well defined. I mean, there were ribbons of tape on different trees and things that kind of show you where to go, but there were certain points where you could go right, you could go left, and you got to stop, you got to look around and figure it out. There was one point where I climbed a rope ladder that's attached to this rock cliff, and I got to the top. There were volunteers there at the top, and I was like, okay, where do I go? Like, what do I do? And they're like, they had no idea. And so I ran around like trying to figure it out. I ended up back at the bottom of that same cliff, staring at the rock ladder again, and then had to go back up, saw the volunteers again, and then finally saw a sign further down where I had to go. And so I wasted a ton of time doing that.
No way.
But there were a couple times where that happened after there's a big slide, huge slide. It's like hundreds of feet long. You go like 65 miles per hour.
How safe is that thing?
Everybody got nervous, but I don't think anyone got injured. Like everybody thought it was like the most sketch thing ever, because it's kind of, there are these 2 grooves where people have slid multiple times before. So they've started to like carve somewhat of a groove into the hill.
Because it looks like a water park slide.
Yeah, but it flattens out toward the bottom, so you don't know if you're going to veer left, veer right, and you kind of just close your eyes and say a prayer and hope for the best. But everybody's fine. So anyway, we made it. But then I got to the other side of the river, and I didn't know which way to go. I was like looking right, looking left. There's kind of like a service road on the other side of the river. And so I had to go across and like keep yelling, which way do I go? Which way do I go? And then they said, go to the right. And so I ran down to the right, and then I saw another crossing. And then there was another point where I think there was supposed to be a rope traverse where you're supposed to be on the rope, but I don't think they had linked the ropes across the river. So it was just like a still river, no indication of where I needed to go.
I just came up to
but
water.
I did see an obstacle over on the other side. So I said, okay, I need to get over there. That should be the next obstacle. And I dove into the moss and kind of, carved the trail. So when VJ got there, he said, yeah, I didn't know where to go. But then I saw that there was this big, kind of, it was very obvious that Logan had swam across. All the moss had like been split to either side. And he's like, so I just knew to go right across. And so he figured that one out pretty quick. But but it was tough. I mean, you are with that many obstacles, you think you have time to rest on some obstacles, like from the running, but the obstacles were taxing. They were difficult rigs, difficult obstacles. You didn't get as much rest as you'd expect. And so getting back up to speed, getting your cadence back up, was really important, but also really difficult in this race.
And that takes energy when you are trying to navigate where you're going, right? You can never really be focused in on your effort as much when you're just concerned about getting lost. And when you're in front too, because if you're so far in front, there's not a visual, like if you get lost, like you could just lose that lead. They're not going to follow you. That could be it.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you worried about that? Were you thinking
I was, especially when I ended up back at the bottom of whatever obstacle I was at. I got really nervous because I mean, I'm shaving, precious seconds and possibly minutes. And, I'm just waiting for other guys to start passing me up, at that point. But I had no idea the gap that I had put, on the field until I finished, right? I kept running as if somebody was right behind me. And so that was, so I guess I could have relaxed a little bit more than I thought.
Because your finishing time was almost 5 minutes faster? How much faster was it?
7. It was, I ran a 1:14 in 15 seconds. VJ came in at 1:21 and 12 or 14 seconds. So, 6 minutes, 59 seconds back. And then another 7 minutes back was Jason West. But all of us beat the next course record. I think the course record previously was 1:31 or 1:30 or so. And, an hour and 30 minutes. And I think there were more obstacles this year. So, I mean, the level of competition definitely was raised this year.
So, I mean, you have to be feeling good about that. During the race, just kind of let's talk about some of these obstacles real quick. What was your favorite obstacle in the whole thing? Is there one that you're like, that was super fun?
Oh my gosh. The last obstacle that they have is always the best. It's the floating walls.
Oh, it's the floating walls.
Yeah. It's the floating walls to, basically to a cargo net. And then they had multiple bars, 3 bars that you had to swing across to a ring, I think to 2 rings. And then you had to go over a vertical cargo net to the bottom. So this thing is a massive, obstacle, but that was pretty cool.
It's the finale. What's the hardest one out there?
The hardest one, the one that was challenging people, there was one rig where it was where they had 2 big cargo nets that you had to go underneath. So they had a large cargo net that was sagging pretty low, right? So you couldn't touch your feet to the ground or anything. So you had to crawl underneath that, climb underneath that. And then they had an A-frame of rings, similar to what you were referring to earlier, Valkyrie, right? You have to grab the rings, you have to climb all the way up and then come all the way back down. And then they had another massive cargo net to a rope to a bell. And so that one can burn you out if you're not good at cargo nets. Plus, rings are easy enough, but when you have ascending rings where you can't just rely on a swing over to the next one, but you have to muscle up to get to the next one, that one will pull a lot of juice out of you. And that was tough.
Where was that in the race?
That was probably halfway in. Yeah, probably about 2.5, 3 miles in.
So with the cargo net, because I feel like you would just when I like cargo nets are surprisingly taxing on grip endurance.
Yeah,
for what I found in the past.
Yeah.
What do you do to mitigate that? Is it just a matter of conditioning yourself to have enough grip endurance for it, or is there a technique that you've used to kind of help with efficiency?
Yeah. You gotta get through the lowest portion of that net as quickly as possible, because that's when you're supporting the most amount of your weight, and you have to use your ankles or your feet, your legs to lock in and make sure that that's supporting basically the bottom half of your body, right? Because if you're just using arms and getting through it, by the time you get to those rings, you're going to be toast. So you want to go fast, you want to be efficient, but you got to use your legs underneath, locking into the net and making sure that you're supporting your body.
Yeah, so it's really kind of a skill to be able to go through that fast and with your eye foot coordination to kind of move through it quick enough so it's not burning you out, but also knowing how to do it. That is kind of a tough one to have it be that long.
Yeah, definitely. They had a really long monkey bar thing, longer than any rig that you'll have. Is probably 2 or 3 times as long, just monkey bars, right? So if you can find a really quick technique to get through those, that's pretty fun. They had Irish tables. They had they had Skull Valley, which a lot of people will recognize from NORAM or from OCR Worlds, and that's a pretty tough rig. They also had a low rig that was a little bit challenging. Luckily, I'm pretty short and pretty small, so low rigs usually aren't a problem for me. But a lot of their rigs were pretty tough.
I mean, that's up your, like, going into the race, you probably knew that was going to be in your wheelhouse, and like seeing the running, and like you're not afraid of the technical stuff. But going against someone like VJ Jones, I don't know what VJ's approach was like to this. I don't know what his goal was. I don't know what his training was like leading up to this. But like, you don't just beat him by that much. Like that's not something that would tip. I bet that surprised a lot of people. So you must be feeling pretty good, man. Are you feeling pretty confident? How you feeling after the race?
Yeah, I mean, I feel great. I feel like everything is going according to plan, right? So I've managed to get back to health, right? To be healthy. Kind of injured my back, kind of mid-early season, and that's feeling better. So I did everything I needed to do there. Still been able to put in a really strong, block of track work, hill work, a little bit of strength work here and there to make sure that my strength stays up for these types of obstacles. So I feel great. I think I don't think VJ should be disappointed in his performance. He ran really well, and I mean, if you look at how far ahead of the field he ended up, he hasn't lost a step. I think. I think this course probably favored a runner like me who is lower to the ground, who can scramble, who can throw caution to the wind, and and fly through these the rocks and the trail. And like I said, I took a pretty hard spill, and I don't know that VJ wanted to take a hard spill in Ohio and have to fly back to Colorado, but so maybe it favored risk, right? Maybe it was a risk reward type of scenario, and the fact that it was in Ohio, racing people I train with and see all the time, they gave me a little bit of added motivation.
Yeah, and it's like an advantage to not travel as far to races, and like it's hard to access, it's hard to replicate what these like East Coast type of technical trails are when you're on the West Coast. When you're in Colorado, like his trails aren't like that.
No, they're not. No. I mean, it's dense, right? Where we were, a lot of trees, a lot of fallen trees that you got to hop over, where you can lose a lot of momentum. And with 85 obstacles, I think more of this race had to do with how quickly you approached the obstacle and how quickly you got up to speed after the obstacle. Think about how many seconds you can make up or lose, depending on how you approach, getting to and getting away from the obstacle itself.
But I think that's the first time he got beat this year.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is.
So if you take that with your Jacksonville performance, everybody that you've raced this year, you've beaten, right? Like you beat Woods?
I don't think I've beaten Woods yet.
I thought Oh, you weren't at that one Savage that he didn't finish. Yes, you were.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
you were.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. Yeah. So far.
So you haven't raced that. Atkins was at that race too, though.
Atkins.
Right.
Got me. Yep.
So wherever Atkins is next, Logan Broadbent will be there. Tell Atkins to come to Ohio.
Yes, please. Let's have a boomerang tournament or something.
Yeah. But I mean, this does have to set up well for some of the late races, and you got to be feeling good about it. And so are you thinking OCRWC, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking OCRWC. Stratton Mountains has been great for me. I've maybe people probably won't realize, but 2018 and 2019, I finished 4th at OCR Worlds. 2018 was pretty early in my career. I was still trying to figure stuff out. So it's a good mountain for me, right? And I tend to do well in the mountains. So, so that podium has been elusive for me, but I'm right there, and I don't think there's any reason I can't get there, even with a world-class field, there at Stratton Mountain. I think I've got this thing figured out, and I'm looking forward to that race. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, and I mean, you're going to be on people's radar for sure at that point, just from this race alone. And I mean, Jacksonville, obviously, but you're doing everything you can, man. So I'm real pumped to see how that's all playing out. I'm just real excited to see these results at this race. I mean, this is like just right up your alley and just knocked it out of the park. So awesome.
Man, I appreciate it. Yeah. And I mean, Hubie does a great job of hosting a race. Everybody gets excited about this one. Definitely want to encourage everyone to come out, next year. If you want to prepare for OCR Worlds or a course like that, this is a great race to come out and do it, because it will test you, right? And and I think we had, so VJ I think did an awesome job, very humble guy, like just nicest guy ever. We cooled down afterwards together, we chatted quite a bit. I may go train with him a little bit in Colorado,
Nice.
leading up to West Virginia or OCR Worlds or whatever it may be. But yeah, he's going to be on top of tons of podiums, well into the future. I may have a shorter timeline to work with, so I'm going to try to take advantage while I can. And then, Jason West did a great job. Robbie Gingrich was there as well. Finished, I think, 4th place. And then Dustin Livingood, he's always a contender.
Rock solid. Rock
solid. So yeah, come on out to Ohio, guys. See what a real race is all about.
Yeah, and we had a comment that said it is the race to prepare for Worlds, and I agree. I mean, this is the place to really kind of see where you're at, and it's a good timeline too. It gives you some time to really kind of prepare things out. Are you thinking Utah next?
Yeah, I'll probably be at Utah. I've got another trick shot video, boomerang trick shot video to shoot with big YouTube channel. I don't know if I can mention that yet, but
all right, well, let us know. We'll
and
post
then
that.
I'll fly straight from there to Utah and hopefully race with everybody. And then, we've got Asheville, we've got West Virginia. So the whole U.S. National Series I'm planning to do. OCR Worlds, of course. Yep. And we'll see what else pops up. But I'm looking forward to seeing everybody out there and hopefully continuing the momentum from early season.
Well, you're healthy, you're kicking butt, you're doing obstacles, you're throwing boomerangs, you're just doing all the things that you can do.
Doing it all, man. Doing it all. Man.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you guys. Thanks.